welcome to your very own 9th and 10th channel. I'm Aishwarya, and in our class today we are going to be covering the whole chapter, that is control and coordination, in one shot. So I hope all of you are ready. Today's class is going to be a 2-hour class. So we're going to have it for 2 hours and we're going to wrap up the whole chapter. Yes, so I hope that before I get started, my audio, my video and my screen and what I'm writing on the screen is visible to all of you. Yes, thank you so much everyone for wishing me for Happy Teachers Day. Yes, today is definitely a happy day, but Teachers Day is never complete without all my wonderful students, right? And I would request all of you to stay till the very end, right? Because apart from, of course, covering the important chapter, that is control and coordination, I have a very big surprise for all of you. Yes, so towards the end of the class, I want all of you to be there till the very end. Yes? Will BYJU'S be conducting midterm exams? We will be helping you with the practice of it, Bharat. Yes? Thank you so much, everyone. I can see a lot of you are here. I can see Gaurav, Priyanshu. I have Muna Kumar. Yes, hello. All right, everybody. Sugandha is here. Yes. Okay, Pari, Alone Gaming, 30 Seconds Education, alright, so Nali, Shalu, Pari, Kusum, Sophia, oh my god, so many of you are here for the class. Very good, everybody, very good. Shivam Jha is here, hello Shivam. Yes, so some of you have your exams coming up and don't worry, we are here to get you prepared for your exams, right? So just believe in us, we are here for you. Shagun, Ram, Rajiv, thank you so much everybody. Thank you so much. It means a lot. Very quickly, give me a thumbs up. Is my screen clear? Is my voice audible? And what I'm writing on the screen, is it visible? Yes. All right, everybody, give me a quick thumbs up. So Bharadwaj is asking, today is there going to be Menti. So we're going to have the Menti quiz tomorrow on the whole chapter, all right? Because see, the concepts in this particular chapter is very heavy, which is why it will be a bit of a stretch to also have Menti. But what we're going to do is tomorrow, Ankita ma'am is coming with the Menti quiz, wherein she's going to come with some interesting questions for all of you. And I'm very sure that it will help you. Yes, we are going to do plant hormones as well today. Do not worry. All right, everybody, please make sure that you have your notebooks, your pens, your textbook with you so that you can make a note of your pointers, and make sure that you have a bottle of water. Thank you so much, everyone. We are going to get started now. Now, of course, I'm sure at the beginning of the class, you would have seen the ANTHE video, right? And for those of you who are new to the channel, and this is the first time you're seeing the video, the thing is, ANTHE stands for Aakash National Talent Hunt Exam. And of course, we would have heard about the BYJU'S scholarship test, and this is also another kind of scholarship test that we would encourage all of you to enroll, and this is also absolutely free. But here, the bonuses are slightly different, right? Here, if you see, you have a chance to win an all-expense-paid trip to NASA, and the exams are going to happen sometime around in November. So all of you, please do register, right? So again, lot of things up for grabs, and again, registration is absolutely free, but all of this paves way for your examinations later on. So if you want to, attempt NEET or JEE, this is your starting point, right? So all of you, please promise me that you will register. Shubhi has already registered. Very good. And others, all of you, please do register. Yes? Okay, thank you so much, Alien, for wishing me Teachers Day. Thank you so much. Yes, you are all amazing and wonderful, wonderful students. Now, I do understand in today's class, right, the topics that are there in this particular chapter, they are divided into 3 broad, segments, I would say. Can we make me a little small on screen? Yes. So now if you see, we are first going to start with nervous coordination. Now, when you talk about nervous coordination, Ankita ma'am and I have already, taken it up in chunks, and we have done it. So in case if you want an in-depth video as well, you can always go back to our channel and check it out, right? But because on an exam point of view, nervous coordination is extremely important. So we're going to start with nervous coordination, where we're going to look at signal transmission. We are going to be looking at reflex action, structure of the brain, and then lastly we will move on to understanding little bit about the PNS. So this is how the flow of the session is going to happen, right? Then we will do chemical coordination in animals, right? So in animals, we are going to look at hormones. And again, if you see, we've had an in-depth understanding of this, especially in animal hormones. So you can go back and check that video out as well, but we will definitely be covering it. And last but not the least, on popular demand, we will last be doing chemical coordination in plants, right? So of course, you can't see it on the screen, but now I hope it is visible. Ankita ma'am will come, guys. Ankita ma'am is going to come. That is my promise to you. Yes, she will come, road. But till then, let's quickly focus on the class, right? So we're going to start with nervous coordination, and Vedika, we are just getting started. Yes? So now they have moved me to the center, so just give me some time. You can move me to the side. Okay. Now, first and foremost, when we talk about nervous coordination, right? In nervous coordination, there are some important terminologies to remember. Yes? And if you see in our class today, because it's a one-shot marathon session, I'll take up what you say. I would request all of you to focus on what I am teaching. And there's going to be a summary / doubt board session or a slide wherein there we can, discuss all of these doubts that you are having. And let's, maybe focus our doubts, because when we're doing nervous coordination, please ask me doubts from this. Because if you have doubts in chemical coordination, I would just request you to be little patient, because when we get there, I will definitely clarify your doubts, right? So I would request all of you to follow these basic things in today's class so that we can utilize our time wisely, right? Give me a quick thumbs up and we're going to get quickly started. Yes? I want you to tell me that we are good to go with these basic things. Yes, very good. So Kailasini, I'm going to explain this after I finish nervous system and I start with chemical coordination, okay? Because it will make more sense for you when I teach it at that time. Very good, very good. You are all wonderful students, yes? So now when you're talking about nervous coordination, right? There are some important terminologies that we will constantly keep using. And make a note of these terms. Yes? So we have stimulus, receptor, and response. Now when we talk about control and coordination in general, right? We see that our body is constantly interacting with the surroundings. And within our body also there's so much interaction that is happening, which is why it is important that all of these things are getting coordinated. So think about it as a big, dance performance where you have around 1,000 people. And for it to be very efficient, all those 1,000 people should have their movements coordinated. If one person also does something wrong, it will affect the whole flow of it. So our body is almost like that. Yes? Which is why control and coordination in general is very important. Now, when we talk about nervous coordination, we see that it is done by the nervous system. Yes, and this nervous system does two things, right? It helps us coordinate with our surroundings. Now, in our surroundings, there are various things that are there. And any change that happens in the surroundings, so any event or change in our external environment, it could be maybe intensity of sunlight outside, right? It could be the heat that is there. It could be maybe the sound that is there. These are all, they're all external changes or external events. They're not happening inside our body, it's outside the body, right? And we see that any event or change in the external environment which has the ability to bring a change within our body. So if there's a sound outside, our ears will perceive it, right? If there's a change in light, our eyes will perceive it, right? So whatever changes are happening, there's something that's going on within our body as well. That is what we call as a stimulus. So you can write the definition down. Stimulus is an event or a change in the external environment that generates a specific reaction within our body. Now, there's a reaction which is getting generated. That is what we call as a response. So response is nothing but how we react to a stimulus, right? That is what is a response. And as biology students, we should know that we shouldn't be using generic terms, but rather we should be using the specific biological terms. Stimulus, response, right? And last but not the least, we have receptors. Now, receptors are nothing but structures which are in our body. I mean, how is our body knowing that light is changing, sound is coming, or the smell that is there, right? How is our body knowing all of this? That is the job of the receptors. So they are structures or specialized cells which are present in different parts of our body. So specifically, especially in our sense organs that are there, right? That have the ability of recognizing them. Okay, there is a stimulus, and not just that, you are able to receive them. Are we clear, everybody? Stimulus is any external change, right? So anything, any change that's happening in our surroundings, right? That is what we mean by stimulus. What is response? The reaction to a stimulus. What is a receptor? What is there inside our body and that is able to react to it, right? Or that's able to perceive it. Yes, I am able to read all of your messages, everybody. Please don't think that if I have missed out any doubts, you can just send it once again, right? Yes, very good. Now, like I told you, we see that this stimulus, all of this is perceived by the nervous system. But why does our body, right? Why does our body require this nervous system? Yes? So that is what also we're going to understand. Killer boys, if you've not studied control and coordination, I request 2 hours of your time now. You will learn everything in this particular class. Yes? You will be able to learn everything. Now, why does our body require nervous system? Yes, of course, Abhinav, I did see your Teacher's Day messages. Thank you so much for that, right? So I was just thinking that once I finish it up, I would thank all of you once again. Yes? Okay. So now, of course, when we talk about the nervous system, yes, I'm going to come back to this. Why does our body need the nervous system, right? So that is an important thing to understand, and you can make a small note of it everywhere, right? So this nervous system is responsible for keeping our body, right? So it keeps our body informed about the changes that are happening. So external changes that are there, whether they are outside or they happen within our body, external changes happen, right? And these changes need to be informed, and that is the role of the nervous system. Next up, it's not just there for informing, but our nervous system also memorizes. It keeps a memory of, okay, this is what's happening. So let's keep a memory of it. So it also stores information so that it can be used for later use. And last but not the least, it is responsible for regulating various voluntary and involuntary actions. Yes? So this is the role of nervous system. Okay, these are 3 broad, I would say they're very simplified functions that are there, right? But these are 3 very broad functions of the nervous system. Now, the nervous system, as the name suggests, is an organ system which is made up of many structures. But the structural and functional unit is nothing but the neurons, right? So, they are nothing but the neurons that are responsible for this, all right? Yes. So everybody, thank you so much for all your wishes for Teacher's Day. This means a lot to me. I did see all of your messages. So thank you so very much. It means the world to me, right? Now, for those of you who are asking me again on what is stimulus, stimulus is nothing but any external change or external things. What do you say? Any external change that takes place that brings about a response in our body. Are nerves and neurons the same thing? No, they are not, Siddhartha, and I will be telling you why in just a minute. Yes? So now that we know that this is a structural and functional unit, now we'll understand how this nervous system does its role. I'm saying it is informing changes, right? It is there for memory. It is regulating various things. So how exactly is the neuron able to do this? Now we see that neurons here are responsible, or they communicate through each other, or I would say the whole nervous system communicates amongst itself and with the other organs by generating electrical impulses, or I would say electrical signals, right? Very important. That is how they are able to communicate with each other, right? And we see that the neurons are responsible for communication between the CNS or the central nervous system and of course with different parts of the body, right? Yes. All right. So nerves are not the plural form of neurons. No. But neurons are also known as nerve cells, right? I would just request 5 minutes of your time. So I will tell you what is it, right? Do they contain charges? Yes. So electricity, as we know, right? They're nothing but charges. So an electric impulse gets discharged. And this happens due to difference in the ions. So basically there are a lot of ions that are there. Impulse is nothing but a quick electric charge that passes through, right? So that is what we mean by it in very simple terms. I am not going into the details of it. If you don't use impulse, you can use electric signal as well, right? Yes. Is there a difference between electric signal and impulse? Impulse is the biologically correct term to use. Signal is a simple way of explaining it. Yes? All right. So I will request all of you, Shrishti, Vedant, I'm getting to all of these things. So please just give me 5 minutes. I'm getting to all of these pointers. I request all of you to be very patient, right? Welcome Larissa, welcome to the class. I'm Aishwarya and we're doing a one shot on, chapter control and coordination. Yes. Now next up is a very important one, which is the structure of the neuron, right? So I will request all of you to quickly tell me the important parts of the neuron, because we have already learnt about this in our grade 9 in the chapter tissues, where we learnt about the nervous tissue, right? So very quickly, can you tell me what are the important parts of the neuron in the chat? Yes, very good. All right, I can see the answers coming in. Soma, all right. So we see that there is cell body, which we call as cyton, or we say soma. Very good. Then you have told me about dendrites. Yes, all right. We have dendrites. Then I can see axon there. We have axon, all right. Then what else is there? Axon. After that, nerve endings or axonal endings or axon terminals, right? So this is what we mean by it. So these are axon terminals. Yes. Very good. We have nucleus. Yes, I will label that as well. So we have the nucleus. Then of course we have myelin sheath, right? So myelin sheath is a protective fatty sheath that surrounds the axon in some cases. So here we have myelin sheath. Yes. Very good. Then of course we have node of Ranvier. Very good. So we have node of Ranvier. Very good, very good. Yes. So I think I've interchanged my E's and I's. So I'm just going to quickly fix that. Schwann cells are there. Yes, very good everybody. Very good. You are all very wonderful students, I would say. So very quickly I will tell you the importance of each of these parts, right? So cell body or cyton has a prominent nucleus, and from the cyton we have cytoplasmic projections known as dendrites, right? And one such long projection that you see is the axon. Now the axon is normally, in some cases, right, we see that axon is surrounded by a fatty sheath known as the myelin sheath, right? And we see that such axons are known as myelinated axons that are there. This is an extra piece of information. Now axons end in axon terminals. Yes? So this is a simple structure. Now for those of you who are asking me, ma'am, why do we have myelin sheath, right? What is the role of myelin sheath? Myelin sheath acts as an insulating function, which means that we know that electric signals are conducted through the neuron, right? So we see that the electric signals will go through each neuron in this manner. And we see that it's important that these signals don't get mixed up. Yes? So imagine if you had 5 phones in your ear, right? You'll not be able to understand where the information is coming from. Everything is coming to you at one go. Everything is getting mixed up. You don't know who is telling you what. Which is why even inside our body, for communication to happen, they need to be insulated, which is why we have the myelin sheath. Yes? So it's important that you understand this. All right? Okay. Do they allow electrical impulses to travel properly without any concern? Yes, they do. Difference between signal and impulse. Again, impulse, I would say, are sudden. So when you say, right, you are a very impulsive person, that means you're very quick to act. So they're very quick electric signals that I would say that are going. So it's in with respect to how they are transmitted, right? And because of the nature of how quick they are, we normally say impulse. Yes? Signal is a very colloquial way of calling it, very easy way of telling that what is happening inside our body, right? What is neon bulb? Please ask Saurabh sir, he will be able to tell you better, because Prasanna, we are focusing on the chapter, right? We are focusing on control and coordination. Axolemma is also known as neurilemma, right? I think you're talking about that. Neurilemma is nothing but, again, a thin function that is there. It's like a thin layer that protects axons. Yes? Okay. Yes, what are the functions of dendrites? Now, for this, we should understand how the neurons work. Yes? So, now in this case, if you see, we have the neurons, right? Now, we see here that In this case, we have neuron 1, right? And we have neuron 2. Now, I want you to focus on how they are arranged. They are not arranged end to end like this, right? But rather they are arranged one after the other. Yes, they are arranged one after the other in this manner. Now, this is important that you understand this point. Now, what happens is that whenever there is a stimulus, again, if somebody is going to ask me what is stimulus, it is any event that happens outside the body, or it's an external event that takes place, right? Some change that's happening on the outside. When there is any stimulus, our receptor will perceive it, right? Receptor will be like, oh, this is happening, and it will pass an electric signal. Now we see that the dendrites that are there, right? So dendrites of the first neuron will receive the impulse. So the role of dendrites is to receive the impulse, or it's receive the electric signal. And from there it will pass it to the cyton. Write this down, very, very important. Dendrites are there for receiving the signals. Yes, so their role is to receive. I'm stressing on this. Now from there it will go to cyton, it will go through axon, and it will reach our nerve endings. Then we see here that these two nerves or these two neurons that are there are not connected. Neurons are never connected. Yes, so they are always closely placed but never connected, right? And we see that from here, we see that the signal will go on to the next neuron. And notice how next neuron, we have dendrites receiving it again, going to cyton, axon, and so far. So this is how we have transmission of signals. Yes? Are we clear, everyone? Now I got a question on what is the role of node of Ranvier. So node of Ranvier is there that helps in making sure that the electric signals are passed very fast, right? So I hope that this is clear. They just help in faster transmission of the signal. Yes. Does every neuron have a myelin sheath? No. There are some neurons without it, right? I'm getting to that point, Mohit. Yes. Are we clear with the flow? For neurotransmitters, just wait 5 minutes, I'm getting to the point, right? Cell processes or cell projections, cytoplasmic projections are nothing but your dendrites. So with this, if you see, we now know how it goes, right? Now I told you that they are not connected, right? They are not connected to each other, but rather they are closely placed. So this is our neuron 1 and this is our neuron 2. Right? And we see that there's a fine gap which is present. So the fine gap, this definition is important. They'll ask you in your exams, okay? So the fine gap that is present between the axon terminal of one neuron and dendrites of the second neuron, right? So this fine gap that exists is what we call as a synapse, right? So this is what we mean as a synapse. Synapse, again, very important. It is a gap that is present between two neurons, the axon terminal of one neuron and the dendritic end of the other neuron. Yes, Anushka, I am not ignoring you. I will clarify your doubts. Let me just wind this up, right? I'll wind up the whole concept and I'm going to take doubts after this. Just give me 5 minutes of your time. Yes? So now here we see that once the electric signal that is there, it reaches the axon ending, right? Or your axon terminal of one neuron. From here, we see that there is a chemical reaction that takes place. Yes? So what effectively happens is that there are these chemicals which are present inside small, bulbs or what we call as vesicles. And these chemicals are known as neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are nothing but chemicals which are released from the axon terminal. So they are released from the axon terminal into the synapse and then they go into the neuron or they go into the dendritic side. So basically if you see, right, it's not that the electric signal is continuous. Basically throughout the neuron, if this is my neuron, through this neuron it will be electric signal. But in that gap that takes place, right, here it will be a chemical signal. It's a very interesting one. It's not like how electricity flows through, you cannot think of it as a, like a wire, a single wire that is connected from one place to another, right? But instead we see that here it will be electrical. At the signal or at the synapse, we see that the neurotransmitter is released, which will help in passing on the information. Yes? Are we clear with what is neurotransmitters, right? Are we clear so far, everybody? Because this is extremely important, right? Neurotransmitter is also known as acetylcholine? No. Sahil, example of neurotransmitter is acetylcholine, right? No problem, Anushka, no problem at all. Please don't say sorry, right? Very good. Now, one more thing here is, I'm going to explain it once again. So basically what happens is that we see that, I'm just going to make some space so that you understand this better. So this is our neuron. Just to make this easy, we have neuron 1 and here we have neuron 2. Okay, so we have neuron 1 and 2. Now what's happened? Our dendrites have received all the information. Now an electric signal is passing through the neuron. So this here is electric. But once it reaches the end, right, the axon terminals, it will release chemicals. So through the synapse that is there, we see that it will be a chemical signal. These chemicals will nicely float and go to the next one. And then it will be electrical, right? So that is exactly what happens, right? Now more examples of synapse. Synapse is a fine gap that exists between two neurons in multiple places all over our body. But at the same time, if, for example, there is a last, you have many neurons connected one after the other, right? And finally, it has reached the place where the information has to go, right? So let's assume that now this is my muscle. And this is my neuron that is there. My axon terminal has reached the final destination where the information has gone, right? So this junction, the fine gap, now a lot of you are asking me, right? So the fine gap, I'm going to write this down because very important. The fine gap that exists between the axon terminal and maybe you can say the muscle cell is what we call as a neuromuscular junction. Are we clear now? Synapse is between two neurons. Neuromuscular junction is when it's muscle and axon terminal. Yes? Why can't signals go somewhere else and get diffused? Will they compulsorily go to the next neuron? So this you can think of it as Chinese whispers, right? So imagine I am here and I have 100 people between me, right? And I needed to go there. If I just announce it like this, I will not be able to tell my information to the last person. It will just randomly get scattered, thereby making it ineffective. But if I pass on the message to one after the other, we will be able to make it effective, right? Neurotransmitters are chemical. Yes? All right, they are chemical. Vesicles are in the axon terminals. So far, so good. So polarization that is there is actually the difference between the ions, right? Like I told you, basically as an electric signal, they are able to go due to difference in how much ions are there, like potassium, sodium. We don't need to go into details of it. But polarization is when there's an extreme difference in amount. What is the difference between neurotransmitters? So neurotransmitters are chemicals that help in transmitting the electric signal or the information from one neuron to the other, right? And we see that synapse is the fine gap that is there. Chemical and electric impulses the same. They carry the same information, but the nature is not the same. As the name suggests, one is chemical and one is electrical, right? Are we clear, everybody, so far? So I'm going to summarize what we did. We started off by learning what are the definitions of stimulus, response, and we also learnt about receptors, right? Very, very important to understand. Now, next thing we learnt about was the structure of neuron, right? We learnt about all the important parts. Somebody was asking me for node of Ranvier. I hope I have clarified your doubt. Anushka, you had a doubt. Please ask me what is your doubt because I missed it out earlier. Then after this, we learnt about signal transmission, right? How the information goes across the nervous system, right? Then we also learnt about the synapse, or I would say specifically, we learnt about the neuromuscular junction, and we also learnt about What is synapse? Yes? Very good. Very quickly, everybody, give me a thumbs up on the chat. We have covered the first very big part. This forms our fundamentals, right? Very good, very good. Give me a thumbs up on the chat. Quick. Yes, neurons are present in our body. Very good. They're present everywhere. Very good. Yes. Myelin sheath. Okay. What is myelin sheath? Axolemma. All right. Myelin sheath / myelinated sheath, right? They are more or less the same thing. It's with reference to the myelin sheath that is there, right? Now, at the same time, when you talk about axolemma, it is nothing but the outer covering of the axon, right? That's as simple as that. What do neurotransmitters transmit? They have chemicals. So basically all the information that is there, right? Information that is there will be passed through those chemicals. So that is what they will transmit. I am going to do human brain. I'm doing the whole chapter, guys. Don't worry about it at all. Yes? Melanin sheath. Melanin sheath is very different, right? Nothing to do with this. It's very different. Chemical messengers are... So again, I will not lightly use the term chemical messengers here because we also call hormones as the chemical messengers. Which type of neurons are present? So we will do the types of neurons, but shower, because you asked me this, the motor neurons that are there, they are present at the neuromuscular junction. Yes, they are secreted by the axon terminal. Example of synapse, anywhere between two neurons that are there. Axon, say electric impulse, they go straight through the axon. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. All right, thank you so much everybody for the Teachers' Day wishes as well. I'm seeing a lot of them. What is the need of studying structure of neuron? Because you need to know this when you have to write questions based on signal transmission, right? You need to have a basic understanding about structure of neuron, because when you're studying signal transduction or signal transmission, it gets very, very easy, right? Yes, very quickly give me a thumbs up everyone and we're going to get started, right? Does the size of the muscle cell change? Size doesn't change, but rather the muscle cell will now know that I have to contract or relax, right? So the muscle cell will, when I say change of shape, yes, the proteins will contract and relax. It will do its function basically. Yes, very good. So before I go ahead, I would request all of you to hit that like button, right? Are you enjoying this class? Is this becoming helpful for all of you? Then I want you to hit the like button. Yes, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Believe in us, because we are there for you, right? When we say we'll prepare you for your board exams, we will be preparing you for board exams end to end. Yes, just please show us your love and trust us by subscribing to our channel. Very good. Now again, like I told you, because we are already half an hour into it and we have a lot of things to cover, I'm going to pace up a little bit, okay? So now next up, we are going to quickly look at the types of neurons. Now we have sensory neuron, motor neuron and relay neuron. Now why should I learn about sensory, motor and relay neuron? This will come helpful for you when you are learning about reflex action that I'm going to start teaching in the next 2 minutes. Yes? So this forms our basis of understanding. Now, sensory neuron, as the name suggests, is responsible for transmitting information from sense organ to your brain or your spinal cord, right? So this is important. So this is not directly mentioned in your NCERT, but you need this so that you can, write your answers on reflex action, right? So this is the role of your sensory neuron, right? Now, next up, we have motor neuron. Now, motor neuron is responsible for transmitting information from your brain and your spinal cord all the way till different parts of your body, right? So, it could be your muscles or different glands that are there. So, this is what is responsible for it. So, here if you look at the examples, we have the neurons that are present inside the nerve connecting brain and muscles of arm. Now, last but not the least, we have relay neuron or association neuron, right? Names are used interchangeably. Association, or sometimes say interneurons, right? Now, they act as a connecting. Relay means to connect 1 and 2. Think about relay race, right? What do you do in a relay race? You have one baton and you keep passing it on from one person to the other. So, you are conveying, you're making sure that that one rod is connecting two people. So simply relay neuron does the same thing. It connects your sensory and motor neurons. And these are what are present in the brain and the spinal cord, right? So these are your three basic types. Now a lot of you are asking me, ma'am, neuron is there, nerve is there. What is the difference between the two? Neuron is a single cell, right? It is a single cell that is there. But nerves are made up of many such neurons, where the axons are brought together and they are bundled up. So imagine if this is my one single neuron, right? And this is the axon of my neuron. Now many such axons will be bundled together to form a single nerve, right? And this is what you need to understand. And because there are many nerves that are there, we see that there is the myelin sheath. What is the myelin sheath made up of? It is made up of some fatty tissue that are there. So we say that it's a fatty tissue, or we say it is a fatty sheath. Yes, that provides and that connects it. So what is the definition of myelin sheath? Myelin sheath is a fatty tissue that provides insulation, right? It provides insulation and it covers it. Yes? Alright, now we are clear with types of neurons and now we know that there are nerves. So simply if you see, we have similarly like this. Sensory neurons together make up sensory nerves. Motor neurons together make up motor nerves. Very simple and easy. Sheath is nothing but a covering, right? Like you can think about a sheet, plastic sheet. You cover it. It's something like that. Okay? So now we are aware about these two. Now we see that all these neurons and nerves eventually, especially neurons, I would say, they are the fundamental structural functional unit, right? And they make up your nervous system. And finally, we know that our brain and our spinal cord is what is responsible for controlling and coordinating various activities. Yes? Can we say that nerve is a collection of neurons? You can say the axons of the neurons. See how I'm telling it's a bundle of axons of neurons. That's what we call as nerve, right? Now I'm sure someone will ask me, ma'am, then what about cell body? Cell body is just sitting here. What about them? Any of you are thinking this question? Ma'am, what is the cell body doing? What if that is that a nerve or is it not a nerve? How many of you are thinking about this? I know someone will be there. Yeah. No problem, guys. It is absolutely normal. All these cell bodies form another structure known as ganglia. Now you keep hearing this ganglia, ganglion and all of that. This is just what it is, right? So you have ganglion, then nerve, right? So that is what it is. Are we clear, everybody? Are we clear? Yes? Good to go. So now, like I told you, we have the brain and the spinal cord that is responsible for regulating all of the functions that happen within our body. Now, of course, some of the functions that we do require some thought or we may put some effort into it, right? So there are two kinds of actions basically that we execute, right? This session is live. I am live and I'm taking this class. I just saw that, so I thought, I would be able to do. Now, actions that happen inside our body are of two kinds. Now, again, this is very basic, but it's important that you know your basics. I'll always tell you, for your board exams, if you know your basics, everything else is sorted. Do not worry about the rest of it. So now, if you see, you have two kinds. You have involuntary functions, right? You have involuntary actions, and then, of course, you have voluntary actions. Now, voluntary actions are those actions which you can control. So, can you give me an example of any voluntary action that is there? Very quickly, everybody. An example of a voluntary action that is there. Very good. Walking, that is there, right? Like walking, breathing, I'll not say is voluntary, right? Movement of arms, talking, movement of limbs, bowling. Very good. These are all considered to be voluntary actions which is in our control. But involuntary actions that is there. For example, breathing or how the food goes down through our food pipe. Or there are some actions which we don't really control but we think we are controlling it but we are not really controlling it, right? Like heartbeat. Yes, these are all considered to be involuntary actions. So now we see that of course all these voluntary and involuntary actions are controlled by the central nervous system. But again, we see that some of these involuntary actions are extremely quick, right? They are very quick and they are very fast. This is what we call as a reflex action. Now on an examination front, reflex action is super important. I want all your eyes, ears, nose, everything, all your sense organs directed towards learning reflex action, because you get it's a very common question that they ask you in your exams. They either ask you questions on explaining reflex action, or they give you a question wherein the diagram will be given to you and you need to label it, right? So this is extremely important, everybody. I want your focus on this, and then I will be writing it, right? I mean, I'll take your doubts, yes? So first listen to the explanation, and then I am going to take doubts, okay? Thank you so much, everyone. Lakshmi, I will explain what is sensory neurons in just 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll finish explaining reflex action. Now, one thing to understand is that reflex action and reflex arc are two very different things. Make a note of this. They are not one and the same, okay? Reflexes or reflex action is an involuntary, it is an instantaneous, or you can say it is a quick reaction to a stimulus, right? So, very common example that we always talk about is touching a hot object, or sometimes when we touch a sharp object, right? So these are all some reflexes which we don't think about, right? When you touch a thorn, do you think about, is the thorn pointy? Is it hurting me, right? Should I take my hand off? No, right? We don't really think about it. Similarly, when we are touching a hot object, we are not measuring, oh, how hot is this? Should I take my hand away? Should I keep touching this? Or maybe, if I can push my limits. No, we don't think about this. You touch a hot thing, you take your hand off. You get pricked, you move your hand off. There's no thought that is going in. That is why we say that it's an involuntary and nearly an instantaneous reaction. Almost involuntary, almost? It is an involuntary thing that we do, right? If that is reflex action, what is a reflex arc? How is it different? Now, reflex arc is again, I have a very fancy definition on screen, but I'm going to give you a very simple one, right? It is the shortest route taken by the electrical signal or the electric impulse from where to where? From your receptor to your effector, right? Or basically from where it is getting, from where you are perceiving your stimulus and where the action is happening, right? Effector is nothing but an organ or a muscle, right? Yes. I am teaching biology, the chapter control and coordination. Preetham, you've been constantly asking me, so I'm just going to take a minute to answer this. So this is the definition of reflex arc, very important, right? Now next up, you need to know the path of the reflex arc, right? Now we see that the first thing here is your stimulus, and the most common example that they will give you is touching a hot object, right? So we have a hot object here, somebody has gone and touched it, right? So what happens, or what happens inside our body? So now first thing is that your receptor. Now the flow is very important, everybody, pay attention. Receptor will perceive the stimulus. So stimulus is here, your receptor is what is responsible for this. Now receptor will pass on this information to your sensory neuron. And somebody was asking me, ma'am, what is sensory neuron? Sensory neuron is a neuron that is responsible for transmitting your electrical signal from receptor to the central nervous system, right? So this is the central nervous system that is there. Now sensory neuron will then take it to your CNS, or in this case it is your spinal cord. Now most often we'll be like, ma'am, brain is not involved, only spinal cord is involved in reflex action. That is not the case, okay? Very important to understand that both brain and spinal cord, that's why I'm saying CNS, central nervous system, is involved in this. So it will take the closest path. So for neck and face, the closest path is to your brain. But below your neck, right, the shortest path is to your spinal cord. That is why you need to understand that it is not only in spinal cord but your central nervous system. Yes? And we see that inside the central nervous system you have a relay neuron or your association neuron, which is responsible for connecting your sensory and motor neuron, right? And we see that this, what spinal cord will do, quickly process the information, it will send out the message, right? So it will pass on the message to the respective muscles. So effector is nothing but the part of the body which will carry out the action, right? So effector is the part of the body that will carry out the action. Please write this down. All right, and I could see a lot of you are asking me what is stimulus. Stimulus is any external change. In this case, hot object, right? Or in this case, you know, it could be the thorn. They are all, you know, the stimulus that is there. And motor neurons, I've already explained this, but I'm going over once again. They are responsible for carrying information from central nervous system to muscles or glands, right? That is their job. Sensory neuron is from your receptors. I'm writing this down because a lot of you are having doubts. To your central nervous system. Blinking of eyes. So mainly they are involuntary. We think we can control it, but actually we cannot, right? Effector is the part of the body that carries out the action. I'm writing all this down. So carries out action, which is told by the which is told by the central nervous system. Now, in your reflex arc, important thing is the direction, right? You need to draw the arrows from where to where it is going. They may ask you to draw it, but if they ask you to just describe the reflex action or the reflex arc, you only need to write it, right? And only you need to make boxes like this. Yes, I know it's a lot of time. I mean, a lot of students requested, which is why I'm constantly defining stimulus. But I hope now stimulus is clear, everybody. It's okay, Rudrakshi, if your battery is going out, you can always recharge and come back. The class will keep going on, right? Should we practice the diagram? I would recommend that you practice the diagram. Yes. My name is Aishwarya. Yes, I hope, Nishita, you have been asking me about it. So, are we clear? Reflex action becomes super easy. We know difference between reflex arc and reflex action. Yes, all right. Very good, very good. Got it. Because now I'm jumping into another very big topic that is there. That is the brain, right? So, I'm moving into brain. Only 4% left. Everybody, please go charge your phones. We are going to get into the interesting part, right? All of you, charge your phones. And let's take a minute right now and drink some water, right? All of you drink some water for a minute. I'm also going to drink some water. And these two topics that I told you are very important topics when it comes to your, exam point of view especially. That is why I have been spending some time here. Yes, have all of you had a big, quick recharge of water as well? Anamika, we will be having a class wherein, because see, I want to explain it right now, but we'll do a separate class on how to draw these diagrams. So we did it for live process as well, and Ankita ma'am will also be taking one on this where some of the important diagrams can be drawn, right? Yes. Definition, axon terminal, can you just scroll back up there, Vishnu? Vishnu, can you just scroll the comments, please? Yes. Find gap that is present between axon terminal of one neuron and dendrites of the second neuron. Yes, killer boy, that is the correct definition. Yes, you've been asking me for a long time, right? Ankita ma'am will be coming to meet all of you very soon. Yes. So now, somebody wanted me to quickly tell you what is the difference. So I'm just going to go back. Reflex action is nothing but an involuntary or nearly instantaneous. The act of taking our hands back, right? That is what we call as reflex action. Reflex arc is the route which is taken by your impulse within the body that is responsible for carrying it out. Yes? I'll give you a quick recap. So like I told you, we know what is reflex action, right? Now are we clear with reflex action? This is what we mean by it. A quick, involuntary and nearly instantaneous response. While reflex arc is the path which is taken by your body, that it is taken by the impulse, wherein we see that it takes the shortest route within the body. And here we have looked at how there's a stimulus that is there, right? We see that the receptor will perceive the stimulus, pass on the information through the sensory neuron till your central nervous system. Inside your central nervous system, you have relay neuron, which will connect your sensory and motor neuron. And from there, the motor neuron will transmit this information to the effector or the muscle. Neuromuscular junction is the gap, or I would say the fine gap that exists between the axon terminal and your muscle, right? That is what it means. Are we clear, everybody? Because I'm going to move into a very quick one and I do not want to come back to this, right? And for some of you who are asking me for how many marks it will come, it differs. If they ask you to explain reflex action, it can easily come to 4 to 5 marks, right? So very important, reflex arc. Okay, now we have around another 1 hour and 10 minutes of time. So I need you to all be focused on this. Yes? Now, of course, we have learnt about our reflex action. We've learnt about the neurons. Now, nervous system has two broad junctions, right? So we have central nervous system and we have peripheral nervous system. So first up, we will look at central nervous system. Now, central nervous system mainly includes your brain and your spinal cord, right? And here we see that they are protected by these bony structures. So they are physically protected by bony structures. So your brain here is protected by the brain box, which we call as the cranium, that is present as a part of the skull, right? So this is the brain box that is there, which is called as the cranium. Similarly, we see that the spinal cord is protected by the vertebral column, or what we commonly call as the backbone. Now, apart from being physically protected by bones, they also have some protective coverings. Now, of course, you don't need to go into too much details of it, but it is important that you understand the basics of it. So, we see that the brain is protected by a membrane-like structure. So, I'm sure when you all learnt life processes, you learnt about how the lungs, the heart, they are all protected by a membranous covering. Similarly, even the brain is protected by a membranous covering, which we call as meninges. Very good. I saw the answer. But focus on the spelling, alright? And these are made up of 3 membranes. And if any of you want to know what are the names of the membranes, it is there on screen. You have dura mater, arachnoid matter, and pia mater, right? So these are the 3 membranes that are there. Alright. So this will go on for another 1 more hour. It's a marathon session. Yes, 2 hours. So they're asking me how long is it going to take. They thought I'll wind up now. Now, of course, between all of this, right? So between each of these membranes, there is a fluid that is present, which we call as the cerebrospinal fluid or the CSF. And these are the functions of the CSF, responsible for absorbing shocks and jerks, keeps the central nervous system moist, and supplies food and oxygen to different parts of the central nervous system. So this is the role of the cerebrospinal fluid, alright? And mainly, primary function is to provide protection, and it is not that CSF is there only in the brain, it is there in the spinal cord also. What is pia mater? Pia mater is a part of the meninges, right? It's a part of the meninges that is there. Don't worry. Now CSF that is there. So a lot of you are asking me, ma'am, what if CSF is not moist? Yes. See, when you say CSF is there, it is responsible for supplying food and oxygen, right? So constant supply of oxygen needs to be there. Our brain consumes almost 20% of the oxygen that we use, right? Which is why it is important that, the supply needs to be there. So the cerebrospinal fluid is present in between the meninges, right? Responsible for carrying this out, right? Yes, all right. Now, how to pronounce? It's called as meninges, and CSF is there in your NCRT. Now, we are going to go to parts of a brain. Now, broadly, when we talk about the brain here is like a control center, right? So, this is the control center of our body, and I always say the brain is a magnificent organ. It is extremely wonderful, and even now scientists are trying to figure out how the brain works, right? It's something that they're very curious. They're always trying to learn about it. Now, when we talk about it on an examination point of view, how much you need to know about the brain, right? Brain has 3 parts. Very good. We have forebrain, midbrain, and we have hindbrain, right? Now, lot of you, again, if you have not watched the earlier class and this is the first time you are coming, right? How are we going to define, or why are we saying, ma'am, forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain? What is the basis of it? Now, in the embryo stage, right, or when we were young babies and our brain is developing, when we are in the embryo stage, our brain would look something like this. Yes, this is all our body would be like. Yes? And we see that this part, the fore part of it is what develops into the front part of it develops into the forebrain. Similarly, if you see the middle part that is there is what eventually develops into the midbrain, right? And we also see that the back part of it is what develops into the hindbrain. So this is the reason why we say that there is forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. All right? Now, apart from that, we see that each forebrain or midbrain or hindbrain that is there all has many parts put together, right? So here we see that we have cerebrum, corpus callosum, thalamus and hypothalamus, right? And we see that we have the midbrain, we have pons, cerebellum, medulla oblongata, so on and so forth. Yes? So let's quickly jump into the forebrain. Now your forebrain mainly includes your cerebrum, right? And cerebrum is the largest part of the brain that makes up about 2/3 of it. Now there are two parts to the cerebrum, or two hemispheres as we call. And I saw the answer on the chat as well. We have the right hemisphere and we have the left hemisphere. And these two hemispheres that are there are connected by the corpus callosum. Alright? So this is the role of it. Now we also see that in the cerebrum we observe all these loops that are there. So many loops and grooves that are there. These are called as grooves and ridges, right? And they say that more number of grooves and ridges, more number of axons that are there, or more number of neurons that improve your understanding. All right? Very good. Grooves and ridges in it. Now we see that the main role of the cerebrum that is there is that it's the main site of receiving and processing sensory information. So sight, smell, right? And of course we also see hearing. All of that is connected. And we see that it receives these impulses. And of course, okay, we'll not go into this part right now, but we see that these are the two main functions. Now apart from this, we also see that it is the seat of intelligence. And we also see that this right here is responsible for having memory, for various cognitive functions such as problem solving, so on and so forth. Why should the hemispheres be connected? So that the movement or everything that is there is coordinated, right? Yes. It has many lobes. Yes, it has many parts that we call as lobes. Yes, the cerebrum has it. And different parts carry out different functions. Now, I got a very interesting question. Ma'am, what is the difference between forebrain and cerebrum? Forebrain is the front part which includes your cerebrum, thalamus and hypothalamus. Cerebrum alone is the largest part of the brain that is there. How are they divided? Yes, not the lobes are not divided into hemispheres. No. Alright. Now, of course, here if you see, I had this one point which said that it controls body temperature, hunger, sleep, right? Now, your body temperature, thirst, all of this is controlled by the hypothalamus. And this region right here, this is your hypothalamus. And this thalamus is this part that is there which I am highlighting, which acts as a relay point for all the sensory impulses. Sensory impulses are nothing but, what do you say, information coming from your sense organs. Alright? So this is all about the forebrain. How are they divided? Left and right side. So they are divided from top like this. So if this is my brain, if my phone is my brain, right? It is divided in this manner. Then you have left and right hemisphere. Alright? So they control your voluntary actions as well, right? So they are responsible for controlling your voluntary motor actions. Are we clear, everybody? Very quickly. Yes, come on. We have a lot of things to cover, not enough time. All right, very good, yes. Moving on, we have midbrain, right? So the cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres. Yes, cerebrum that is there is divided into right hemisphere and left hemisphere. All right. So now the rest of the doubts I'm going to take after I wind this up, all right? Because again, we are running short of time and a lot of things to cover. Now your midbrain that is there is located between your forebrain and hindbrain. It's around here. And it is responsible for regulating various visual processing and auditory processing. Which means, simply put, it is responsible for regulating various, visual, that is with respect to sight, auditory with respect to your ears. Now it also is responsible for controlling various reflexes of the eye. Right? So some of you are asking me, ma'am, what is blinking and all of that? We see that this is a reflex action that is there. So we see that sometimes, due to overexposure to light, we see that, the pupil size needs to change. The lens size need to get monitored so that we can focus on the image, right? And I'm sure Saurabh sir would have explained all of this to you when you were learning about human eye and its structure. So we see that all of this is regulated by the midbrain, right? So we see that it is responsible for regulating blinking of eyes and changing pupil size. Yes, midbrain is just a small region. It does not comprise of anything. It's a small tubular region that is there. Then of course we have the hindbrain, right? Yes, it is involuntary. Now your hindbrain that is there includes your cerebellum, your pons and your medulla oblongata. 3 parts make up your hindbrain. So you have cerebellum, you have pons and you have your medulla oblongata. Now your pons that is there has 2 functions. It is responsible for regulating the functioning of the respiratory system, and it also acts as a relay point or a common point for all the information that is coming from different parts of the brain, right? So relay point between different parts of the brain. So this is the role of pons. Make a note of this. Now similarly, we have cerebellum, which is responsible for regulating precision in voluntary actions, right? So it is responsible for coordinating various muscular activity. And of course, we see that it is responsible for bringing in precision. I can see a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to take these questions in 5 minutes. Let me quickly wrap up the structure of the brain, right? Then I'm going to take up these questions. So Bhakti, Yash, so many of you are asking me, please just give me 5 minutes. And then of course we have medulla oblongata that is there, which here as you see regulates various involuntary action such as blood pressure. We see that we have salivation, vomiting, so on and so forth, right? So these are all the functions which are regulated by the hindbrain, especially the medulla oblongata. So with this, we have had a look at the brain and the spinal cord. So we know that these are the control centers, right? And we know that the medulla oblongata will continue to form the spinal cord that is there. Now, apart from this, we have the peripheral nervous system, right? Now, peripheral nervous system is the periphery. As the name suggests, they include all the nerves that come out, right? So that come out from your, what do you say? All of it that comes out from your central nervous system. Yes? Now, of course, we see that there are various divisions of the peripheral nervous system. You have some nerves which are that are there which regulate all the voluntary functions. There are some nerves which are responsible for transmitting impulses that regulate involuntary functions. But broadly, if you see, we have 2 kinds, right? So in your PNS, you have 2 kinds. You have cranial and then, of course, you have, sorry about that. You have cranial and you have spinal, right? So cranial that is there, as the name suggests, is from the brain, right? And we see that there are 12 pairs of nerves that emerge from the brain, and there are 12 pairs. While spinal are of 31 pairs, and they emerge from where? They emerge from your spinal cord, and they carry out information through to the to and fro from the spinal cord that is there. Yes. So with this, we've had a look at CNS and PNS. Very quickly, everybody, are we clear? I saw a lot of questions coming in. Can you draw the brain? I can draw the brain, but because we are a little short of time and we have a lot more important concepts to cover, we will be going. Which part of the brain is affected when a person consumes alcohol? The part of the brain that is affected is the cerebellum, right? So your cerebellum is responsible for maintaining posture and body balance. I saw a lot of questions on that. So responsible for controlling posture and body balance. Yes? Which is why we see that when an individual drinks or an individual consumes alcohol, this is the part that gets affected. Motor actions are nothing but your muscular actions that are there, right? So when we say motor function, all the movement that happens, they are considered to be motor function. Oblongata is nothing but a term that we say, Kailasini. We add on to medulla oblongata. That is the term that is there. Alright? Salivation is a reflex action. Then why is it controlled by the medulla? Siddhartha, I again told you, right? Even though reflexes are there, reflexes of salivation happens where? In the mouth, right? And I told you that all reflexes of mouth and neck are controlled by the brain. So now are we clear as to why that's controlled by medulla? Are we clear? Yes, everybody, are we clear with CNS and PNS? Very quickly, everyone, give me a thumbs up. Reflex action and an involuntary action. Now, reflex actions are quick and instantaneous actions that are there, right? So, they are instantaneous. While when we talk about involuntary, they need not be instantaneous. compare your reflex action, that is moving your hand away, to maybe how food goes through the digestive system. It's not instantaneous, it takes its own sweet time, but again cannot be controlled by us. Function of midbrain, it regulates reflexes of the eye. Cerebellum is responsible for maintaining body balance and posture. We will have a diagram session. We will be doing it. Everyone, can we go ahead? Can we move ahead? Yes, function of hypothalamus is responsible for regulating body temperature. It is responsible for regulating thirst, right? All of it. Okay, guys. All right. Function of cerebrum, it controls your voluntary actions. All your sensory information, that is all the information from your sense organs, are perceived by the brain, especially your, the cerebrum, and it controls your voluntary action. Okay, reflex action is called involuntary because we still cannot control it. The whole point of an involuntary action is that we cannot control. Okay, everybody? Yes. All right. I would want to do Menti, but because we have the whole chapter left, I'm going to quickly wind up. Now, the next two parts, I'm not going to spend too much time because, again, I feel like it's going to take a lot of time. So, we're going to focus on the important concepts only. Okay? So, only important concepts I'm going to spend time. Now, next up, we have chemical coordination in humans. Now, we know that nervous coordination is there. Then, why are we doing chemical coordination? Now, chemical coordination that is there is carried out by a different system altogether, which we call as the endocrine system. Now, before I go into this, it is important to understand, right? We have nervous system doing all this control and coordination. Then why do we need an entirely different system to carry out chemical coordination? Now, your nervous system that is there, of course, helps in understanding, right? It helps in coordinating with your day-to-day surroundings, having information, right? And we see that as soon as an impulse is sent, the action is carried out. But in some cases, that is there, right? It takes a lot of time, lot of effort, and it needs to be constantly regulated. You think about it. Simple thing as growth, right? Growth is a constant process that takes place. And our brain cannot keep sending signals to different parts of our body, telling it, okay, now you have to do this, now you have to do this. It is very tough, right, to sort of keep monitoring that. Which is why important thing that is there is the endocrine system. So we see here that growth or more slower processes, metabolism, which requires a lot of time, requires a lot of regulation, is carried out by your chemical coordination. And in the body of animals, we see that it's the endocrine system that does that. Yes, Matthew and all of you are asking me, ma'am, how to learn biology? We'll do a different class on it, okay? Because now will not be the right class for me to take up that question. So we'll do it very soon, very soon. All right. So now we know that chemical coordination happens with the help of our endocrine system. Now this endocrine system produces certain chemical substances. All right, they produce certain chemical substances known as hormones, right? Now, of course, in the next slide, we will see what are hormones. Now, hormones are nothing but chemical substances which are synthesized by these specialized glands known as endocrine glands, right? And we see that these hormones are transported by the blood to the target organ or to the cell where it needs to bring about a certain change. So, this is what we mean by it. Difference between growth and development. Growth is when your body, so it could be due to increase in cell size or due to increase in cell number. That is what we mean by growth. Development is when that matures, right? It becomes fully functional. That is what we mean by development, which is why we also say growth and development. So now are we clear with what are hormones? So when we say these chemicals need to do, there are chemicals that are responsible for regulating growth and development. It is these hormones that are responsible for the same. They go to nook and corner and they do their job. Now again, when we talk about glands, and I know a lot of you are going to ask me this question, they are of two types, right? So you have endocrine glands and you have exocrine glands, all right? Now, endocrine glands are those glands which directly pour their secretion into the bloodstream. while exocrine that is there will have a tube or a duct, right? So we see that if this is the gland, there will be a tube that will transport it to the cell or the target site, right? How many hormones? I will not be able to give you an exact number, but there are many hormones, right? Many hormones in our body. So now let's quickly see these endocrine glands that are there inside our body. So here, of course, you have the definition on screen, and for those of you who are asking me, will I be sharing these notes? I will be sharing it to you on Telegram. So do not forget to join our Telegram channel and hit that subscribe button. So we have pituitary, thyroid, adrenal, pancreas, testis and ovary, and these are all the different endocrine glands that are there inside our body. Now the pituitary gland is also called as the master gland, right? And we see that this is a small pea-shaped gland which is located at the base of the brain, right? Yes, thymus is also a gland. Now we see that this pituitary gland, we call it as the master gland because it secretes various hormones, right? So it produces many hormones that will tell other endocrine glands what to do, right? So their main role is to produce hormones that control the functioning of other hormones. And apart from that, yes, like how Vimala has told me, we also produce growth hormone. Very good. Yes. What is the meaning of heterocrine gland? Can I tell you this when I'm going to discuss pancreas? Can I do that? And thank you so much, Siddhartha. Thank you so much. Thymus is a gland. So this is the role of the pituitary gland, right? So pituitary gland is responsible for controlling the functioning of other glands, and growth hormone, of course, is responsible for the growth of the body that is there. All right? Yes, and it has two lobes, anterior and posterior. Now, of course, we have the next gland, which is the thyroid gland, right? Now, thyroid gland is a butterfly-shaped gland which is located in the neck region. And we see that it produces mainly thyroxine, but also has another hormone, which is calcitonin. And we see that thyroxine is responsible for the functioning of the overall, or it regulates the body's metabolic rate, right? That is the role of the thyroid gland, or specifically thyroxine, which is produced by the body. Now we see that for thyroxine to be produced, iodine is essential. And if there's not enough iodine in the body, it can lead to a condition known as simple goiter, where we see that the thyroid gland will enlarge and it will cause a swelling in the neck region, right? So we see that there will be swelling in neck region. Now this happens when there is not enough iodine, and as a result, less thyroxine is produced in the body. Important to understand this. Less iodine means less thyroxine. Yes? Which is why, again, I think I would have told this in the class where I took animal hormones, and you can check that out. I've done that in great detail. But again, here you need to understand about simple goiter mainly, right? Yes. All right. So calcitonin is responsible for regulating calcium levels inside the body. As the name suggests, calcitonin. Now next up we have adrenal gland. An adrenal gland produces a hormone known as adrenaline. Now adrenal glands are located on top of the kidneys, right? So they're located on top of the kidneys, and we see that they are usually called as the emergency hormone or the stress hormone, right? And it prepares us for emergency. Now emergency will not always mean danger. So whenever you are in a situation where you are feeling excited, you are feeling nervous, we see that your adrenaline is produced, right? And at this case, we see that large amounts, right? So we see that large amounts of adrenaline is produced in the blood. As a result, it will increase the heart rate that is there. And when the heart rate is increased, it will improve the blood circulation, which means more amount of oxygen reaches to different parts, right? So we see that it will go to different parts of the body that is there. Now, of course, if you talk about it, we see that there are various kinds of it as well. So we see that along with this, more amount of glucose is also produced, right? So glucose is made available. So Grishma in hormones, right? So if you go back to the animal hormone session, I have done it in great detail, pituitary gland and what it does, right? So you can go check that video out, because due to interest of time, because we also have to cover coordination in plants, I have quickly spoken about it. I can quickly give you some examples for pituitary gland. So I can quickly go back and tell you about it as well. So for pituitary gland, we have TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, right? So we have FSH, which is follicle stimulating hormone. So these are some examples that are there. Are we clear? I hope that this will help you. What hormone causes stress? There is no hormone that causes stress, but there are hormones which are produced as a response to stress. Oxytocin, vasopressin or ADH is also there, right? Yes, I am trying my best to answer questions, right? I'm trying my best. All right, everybody. Are we clear so far with adrenaline and what we do? We cannot call it as the kidney gland. Cortex and medulla are two regions, right? So if you take a section of the adrenal gland, cortex and medulla are two regions of the adrenal gland, okay? All right. So now we are going to go into pancreas, right? To control the, yes, it does. It controls the production of other hormones. Yes, very good, Yash. So now basically, if you see, we have looked at three glands and they're very simple and easy. Now next up that is there is the pancreas, right? Now when we talk about the pancreas that is there, a lot of you are asking me, ma'am, what is heterocrine glands, or we have mixed glands, right? Now pancreas you would have learnt about when we learnt about the digestive system, yes? So I'm sure Ankita ma'am has taught you about the role of pancreas and its production in pancreatic juice. Similarly, we see that pancreas also produces hormones, which means it acts as exocrine and endocrine. Hence the name mixed glands, all right? And we see that it produces insulin and glucagon, all right? Now, if you see insulin that is there and glucagon, because this is a very confusing function. Insulin is present or insulin is secreted when there is more amount of blood sugar, right? That means when there's more glucose. So imagine if this is the bloodstream, lot of glucose is there, then glucose needs to be taken up by the cell, right? But somebody has to tell the body that, hey, glucose is available for you. So that is the role of insulin. So it helps with the uptake of glucose. So helps the cells to take up glucose from the body, right? Regulates the flow of glucose? No. Regulates the level of glucose. That is the right way of saying it. So when I say that, you can see here. So this is the cell membrane or the plasma membrane, right? And we see that these yellow color molecules are your insulin. And when insulin binds with the surface of the cell to the receptors, we see that that is the way of informing. That's how insulin will tell, hey, you know what? It is present for you, or glucose is there, you can take it up. Now what happens is that when there is excess of glucose, we see that it is also responsible for converting excess of glucose into glycogen that is stored in the liver. So this is the second function. Yes. Now there are times when our blood glucose level is really low. And in such cases, we see that glucagon will convert the glycogen that is stored inside our body into glucose so that it can be utilized. So are we clear with the functions of insulin and glucagon? Are we clear? Alpha cells, no, the beta cells and alpha cells are responsible for producing, right? They are responsible for producing your hormones, right? They are not directly responsible, okay? All right. Now, of course, another question that is there that you get in your exam is, why do we need to take an insulin shot, right? What is the reason behind having an insulin shot? Now, sometimes due to multiple reasons, right? So there are times when there's not enough insulin which gets produced inside the body. And if there's not enough insulin which gets produced inside the body, the cells will not be able to take up the glucose. See, you can see here, there's no insulin, no yellow color molecules, and they are not able to take it up, right? And this condition is what we call as diabetes. Yes? So diabetes is a condition, all right, wherein when there's not enough insulin, we see that glucose cannot be taken up, and as a result, there is increase in blood sugar levels. I can see a lot of doubts on screen. Give me 2 minutes. I'll just explain this and I will tell you all of it. I'll answer all of it, okay? So this is one thing, and we call this condition as diabetes, where there's an increase in the blood sugar levels. Now, type 1 diabetes exists when there's not enough insulin produced, maybe due to some genetic conditions. But sometimes due to diet, our body develops, right? We see that it develops resistance. There's so much sugar, so much carbs that is being controlled. I mean, that's going into the body, that cells no longer want glucose. So even if insulin is present, they're like, no, we are done, right? And we call this as type 2 diabetes, all right? So insulin injection is given when there is not enough insulin present inside the body, right? All right. Now next up, very quickly, we are going to be looking at two things. Yes, so we are going to look at testis, which is the sex organ that is there, right? And this is the sex organ in males. And it produces the male sex hormone, which is testosterone, that is present in the scrotal sac in males, helps with the development of sperms and with secondary sexual characters. And ovary, that is there, is the female reproductive organ that regulates the production of estrogen and progesterone. And we know that estrogen is responsible for ovulation, which is the release of egg. And of course, we see that progesterone is called as the pregnancy hormone that helps in the retention of the fertilized egg. All right. So now, of course, we've wound up this part. I have 25 more minutes. Yes, Ravi, I think I have 25 minutes before we wind up the class. So very quickly, everybody, please tell me your doubts. All right. Oxytocin that is there is a hormone which is produced by the pituitary gland, all right? And we see that this right here is responsible for especially, during pregnancy, right? And when the female is about to give birth, it helps with the contraction and relaxation of the uterine muscles. Thereby, the female is able to give birth, right? Yes. So, intelligent boy, the thing is, I'm not very fluent in Hindi. I understand Hindi, I can speak in Hindi, but I'm not very good at explaining in Hindi. Don't worry, if there's anything, I'll try my best. Prolactin is an enzyme, again a hormone which is produced, which regulates the production of milk by the mammary glands in females. Yes, there are two types of diabetes we have just discussed. We have type 1 diabetes and we have type 2 diabetes, right? So type 1 is produced due to insufficient production of insulin, and this could be due to multiple reasons. While here it is due to insulin resistance, right? That means that even if insulin is there in the body, due to diet, it's very tough. Yes? So this happens due to lifestyle. How to remember so many hormones? I would recommend that you make a tabular column, right? So the tabular column, if you make, it makes it easy. ADH stands for antidiuretic hormone, all right? It stands for antidiuretic hormone that regulates the production of urine, right? And the water retention that goes on. Hypothalamus, okay. Hypothalamus, as we know, is present in the forebrain, and hypothalamus actually produces certain neurosecretory hormones, right? Or there are certain neurosecretory cells which are present in the hypothalamus that controls the functioning of our pituitary gland. Yes, thalamus. Now, thalamus again is located in the forebrain, which is a relay point. It's a common point where all the impulses pass through and it goes to different parts of the body. Sperm is the male gamete that is there, Sakshi. Are we clear, everybody? Very quickly. Are we clear? I'm just going to have some more water. Yeah, you can say that it's the super master gland. What is follicle? So follicle that is there is actually a structure. So in the case of females, if I have to take the example of a follicle, right? Because it's easy to understand and you learn about it also. So follicle is like an egg-like, it's like a enclosing kind of thing that is there. Wherein inside you will find the egg. Yes. So ADH, where is ADH secreted by? It is secreted by the pituitary gland, right? Stimuli, stimulus is an external. So here I want all the students who were here so far to also tell me what is stimulus, okay? So stimulus is nothing but an external agent, right? Or it's any external change or event that triggers a change within our body. Stimulus is singular form, stimuli is the plural form. All right. I'm sorry, Sonali, I don't know what that is, but I will get back to you on this. You can drop me an answer, right? So wherein if you see, you can just add it in the comment section and I'll get back to the answer. All right. All right, everybody, we have 20 more minutes. Yes, 20 very valuable minutes. So I want all of you to quickly drink some water, right? Because we've had a very long class, right? We've had looked at a lot of important things. So I want all of you to drink lots of water and we are going to go to the last part that is there, right? Yes, we are recharged. We are going to look at chemical coordination in plants. Yes, yes, you're an intelligent boy before I jump into the next one, right? You can tell me. Can I tell you towards the end, intelligent boy, if that's okay? Because we'll quickly jump into coordination in plants. This is also very tricky to understand. Hi Rudrakshi, welcome back, welcome back. What is the role of brain? Brain is there in the reflex arc. See, reflex arc is the shortest route that is there, no? So if the reflex is with respect to your face or your neck, your brain will be involved in processing it. But if it is below your neck, then if you see, it will be, your spinal cord. No, you remind me, okay? Receptor has neuron. Receptors have, so basically a receptor cell that is there will have all of these, structures which will be connected to the neuron, okay? All right, everyone, I can still that we have a good number, 50 odd students who are consistently there. So very quickly, everybody, we are going to move into the last topic. Yes, I was just taking 2 minutes. That is chemical coordination in plants. Now see, this particular topic is very simple and on your examination front, it's damn easy. You don't have anything to worry about. But it's a little tricky to understand, right? So it's a little challenging to understand how exactly plants are doing all of this. So for us, when we talk about, nervous system, endocrine system, it's very easy. You know that organ is there, some chemical is there, it is going, it's carrying out its function. But plants do not have an endocrine system. Right? They don't have an endocrine system like us. Neither do they have a nervous system. So how exactly do plants do coordination, right? And what is coordination when it comes to plants? That is what we need to understand, all right? Now, normally, I have an interesting thing for you, okay? So I'm sure if you would have observed this, and in case if you've not observed it, it's something you can try out at home. So you have a plant and you keep it inside the house, but keep it near a window. What we will observe after a few days is that the growth of the plant, right? We see that it will bend. We see a characteristic bend in the plant. Now, nobody told the plant to move, right? But the plant is still able to do so. We see that there is slight movement. So, does this really mean that plants have the ability to move, right? So, do plants really move? And what do we mean by this? Now, movement, when we talk about in our body, whether it is, animals, in any case, movement is when we go from, maybe there's a change in position, right? So, movement is when there's a change in position in a certain part. And of course, we see that we have locomotion where we go from one place to another. But plant movement is slightly different. Most often, we observe it in this fashion. For example, when a flower blooms, we see that there is change in position, right? Because the petals were like this, but now the petals are blooming out. So there is change in position. That is what you need to understand. Movement is nothing but change in position of a certain part, right? So in our case, when I'm saying I'm moving my hands, yes, that means there is change in position. Similarly, this is a kind of movement we observe in plants. Now, blooming of flowers, growth of, the plant in general, which takes place over a period of time. This is also movement. Then of course we see some interesting movements as well, right? So we see that there are sometimes in this case, so I'll just quickly show you. It's a very beautiful video where you see in sunflowers, right? As the sun moves, you observe that the sunflowers also move, and when it's the night time, they will droop down. So these are all movements that we observe. Now, are these movements with respect to a stimuli, right? Because here we know that there's a change that is being brought about inside the plant's body. So are these all due to stimuli? That is what we need to understand. A lot of you are telling me yes, they are due to stimuli. Now I will tell you yes and no. Now movements we observe with respect to stimuli is called as trophic movement, right? While those that we observe without or with it moves irrespective of the stimuli is what we call as Nastic movement. Very good, both. So what do we mean by trophic movement or tropism? It means that it is the growth of the plant in the direction of a stimulus. Write this down, very important, right? So we see that it is directional movement or it is with respect to an external stimulus. Now there are various stimuli that bring these changes. You have light, you have certain chemicals, you have touch, right? Water, gravity, these are all the stimulus that are there. And based on the stimulus, you have the names on the screen. So if it is with respect to light, we call this movement as phototropism or phototrophic movement, right? Gravity is geotropism. Water is hydrotropism. Touch is thigmotropism. And again, chemicals, of course, here we have chemotropism, all right? So this is important to understand. Now I'm going to quickly take you through all of this. We are going to visualize it because at BYJU'S, we are all about visualizing it. The more you visualize, the easier it becomes, okay? Now first up, we have phototropism, right? So we know that phototropism is with respect to light. Now we see that, of course, wherever the light goes, we will observe a bending of the plant towards it, right? Now we see that here, direction of growth matters, yes? So like I told you, direction of growth, okay? That matters. Now if it is growing towards the stimuli, and write this down, this might seem a little extra but always makes it easy to understand. So if it grows towards the stimuli, we say it is positive, right? But if it grows away from the stimuli, we say it is negative, all right? Now here if you see, we have the stem, right? Or the shoot that is there. Shoot is growing towards the sunlight or it is growing away from the sunlight. Very quickly, can you all tell me? How is it growing? Towards the sunlight or away from the sunlight? We have another 15 more minutes, yes? Towards. So it is growing towards the sunlight, which means will they exhibit positive phototropism or negative phototropism? Because photo is towards the light, no? Positive or negative? Very good, very good. Yes. So if it is growing towards the light, we say that it is positive. Of course, you can't see the screen, but beautiful animations, right? And roots that are there, which is underground, it is growing away from the light. It is growing downwards. So we say that it is against, right? Or we say that it is against the light or it shows negative phototropism. Similarly, if you look at all of it, it is the same concept. Tropic movements are damn easy if you understand one, right? You know one, the rest of it is cakewalk. Now you have geotropism. I know the colors look fancy on screen, but ignore this, right? Next up, we have geotropism. Geo here means gravity. Now, what is growing towards the gravity? Your roots are growing towards your gravity, right? So your stimulus is here. So because it is growing towards your gravity, your roots will show positive geotropism, while your shoot that is there will show you negative geotropism. Now, when you are writing this and studying it, it's very simple. Just know what is the name. Geo means gravity. Picture the plant. Everything becomes super easy to study. How? Roots grow downwards, right? Which means that you know gravity. I'm sure Saurabh sir would have explained this to you. Very simple one. because I did not come for the physics of it, right? But I will try. Gravity, we know, is of course it is that direction that's pulling everything towards itself, to the center of the earth. And roots are growing, that is there. Yes, geo means earth. I said geo is gravity, but geo is earth, which means it's growing towards the earth, downwards. So towards gravity, hence positive. Upwards, right? We cannot stand upside down. I mean, if you think about it, shoots are going above. It's growing in the opposite direction, which is why it is negative. Similarly, we have in response to water. So if it is in response to water, we call it as hydrotropism. Now, the part of the plant that is responsible for absorbing water and minerals are your roots, right? Your roots is responsible for absorbing water and minerals. Now, let's say that there was some water in the side, okay? Now, I'm just going to move to a side so that it becomes easy. So, what you see on your screen is water. It's just on my side, so that's why you're not able to see. Actually, can you move me into the opposite side? They'll move me now, okay? Hydro, yes, obviously. Hydro means water. And normally, because your roots are responsible for absorbing water and minerals, your roots will always grow towards it because that's its job, to absorb water, right? But your shoot that is there will not bend towards it. But rather what will happen is it will grow normally only upwards, which is why we say they exhibit negative hydrotropism. You only need to remember the stimulus and you only need to remember what it is, right? Positive, negative by picturing the plant will become easy. Don't get confused. Now, last two that is there is thigmo and chemo, okay? So, he used some fancy thing now, but Thigmotropism that is there is in response to touch, right? So, we see that there are some creepers or there are some climbers that are there. Now, climbers are plants, as the name suggests, which climb onto a mechanical support, right? So we see that they have these twirly structures known as tendrils. And what happens is that these tendrils, as they encounter, they will start to climb around it, right? So they will go around it and they will climb. And last but not the least, we have chemotropism. So chemotropism is growth that you observe in response to chemicals. So as the chemical is there, it will grow towards the chemicals, right? So that is what we mean by it. And this chemotropism, you will learn more about it, right? So we see that you learn more about chemotropism and of course growth of the pollen tube, all and how do organisms reproduce. So do not worry about it at all, okay? I know Rudrakshi is like, ma'am, I'm very bored. But this chapter is very simple. This part of the chapter is damn simple. Plant coordination. Now I have one interesting question before I move on to the next two parts, all right? How is all this growth happening, right? So when you say that it is twirling or it is growing and all of that, how is all of this happening, right? Now I'm sure all of you would wonder, now how is it getting communicated across cells? Hormones are involved. You have plant hormones, but we see that mainly in the case of your plants, right? We see that it happens due to change in the cell shape. So it could be due to change in cell shape, it could be due to cell size, because I told you growth is not just about increase in number. It could also be due to increase in the mass of it or the size of it, right? And here we see that due to maybe, increase and decrease of water, amount of water, we see that there will be growth. I'll explain this to you when I'm doing Nastic movements, all right? Because I have a very interesting example there. Is master of master gland hypothalamus? It is, all right? So this was all about tropic movement. It is dependent on growth, directional response and slow response that is there. Nastic movements again, as you see, are non-directed movements, which means stimuli is there. I know earlier I said no stimuli, but actually what should I have said is it is not dependent on the direction of the stimuli. I'm sorry, I'm correcting myself right now because earlier I said no stimuli is involved. That is wrong, right? But rather the right way of saying it is it is not in the direction of stimuli. So if you have maybe a stimuli here, the movement will not be in its direction, right? But it will be in the opposite direction. All right. Please tell me that positive chemotropism. So what you saw earlier was positive chemotropism, right? So pollen tube growing towards the direction of the chemicals. That is what we call as positive chemotropism. Okay. All right. Vishnu, can we have a quick look at the chat once? Just see the chat. Yeah. Okay. So now, are we clear everybody with what is tropic movements, the different types that are there, and we have Nastic movements. Is Nastic movements included? Because, okay, so Nastic movements has not been called out in your NCRT, but you have this example on your NCRT. That is this wonderful video on how your Touch Me Not plant works, right? Now, if you notice how the Touch Me Not plant works, we see that as soon as the individual touched it, yes, we see that it is closing, right? So we see that it is now closing. Now, irrespective of how you touch it, we see that it is moving. Now, this happens because on the surface, like I told you, we see that there are various cells which are there which will detect the touch, right? And we also call this plant or this Touch Me Not plant as Mimosa pudica. This is just the scientific name, right? Why is it closing? That is a movement. That's a Nastic movement that you see, right? And as it closes, it happens because, like I told you, change in shape of the cell, right? So let's assume that, I'm just going to go back to the previous slide because you'll be able to see this better. Now these are all the cells of the plant that are there. Now when there is a stimulus, right, and in this case it is touch, we see that there's a change in the shape of the water, right? I mean there's a change in shape inside the cell. So the water molecules that are there will keep going. It will keep going out from one cell to the other, which means a cell which is turgid, and I'm sure turgidity and flaccidity is something you've learnt in 9th grade, right? The cell which is turgid will now shrink. So now this cell will become shrink, or it will shrink out. Similarly, this will also shrink. All of it will shrink. And when collectively cells will shrink, they will all close. And that is how they are able to close. Yes? Why does it close on touch? Because of the change in shape of the cell due to movement of water, right? Turgidity and flaccidity is how they work, and I'm sure you would have learnt about this in your 9th grade. So this is what we call as thigmonasty, right? Thigmonasty for all of you who want extra information. Now I'll give you another example which is photonasty, alright? Now, photonasty is a movement that we observe wherein we see that it is due to the intensity of light. Now, this is very different from phototropism, okay? Do not get confused with phototropism, wherein we see that mainly that happens due to direction towards the light. This is how much light. Is there a lot of light or is there less light, right? That is what we mean by intensity. And oxalis is an example, oxalis plant, and these are the leaves that you see which will droop, that is there, alright? So here's a quick difference between tropic and Nastic movements. I will share this PDF with all of you. So basically tropic is directional, Nastic is non-directional, tropic is growth dependent, this is not growth dependent, this is slow and this is fast, okay? That's very kind of you, Somesh. Now we'll move on to the final part of the chapter that is there. 5 more minutes I'm going to take. That is the plant hormones. So apart from growth related movements that take place due to stimulus, your hormones are also responsible. And plant hormones are also called as phytohormones, right? So we see that phytohormones are nothing but the chemical messengers, and their site of production and action are very different. Now you have auxin, gibberellin, cytokine and abscisic acid and ethylene. So I'm going to quickly take you through all of this. And in this you need to know only one thing majorly, okay? First is your auxins. Now this table will be there for you, so some extra information is there. Auxins are mainly produced in your shoot meristematic tissue and in the tips of young leaves, right? And we see that auxin that is there is often produced in the opposite direction of light, right? So basically what happens is that you have your sunlight that is there. So this is where your light is there. And to promote growth, what happens is that auxin grows in the shady part, right? So auxin is sensitive to light and auxin will accumulate in the shady region. And as auxin keeps accumulating, we also observe growth, right? So mainly we see that it helps in cell elongation. Yes, cell elongation will ultimately mean growth of the plant and also helps with apical dominance. Apical dominance is a fancy word, but basically upward growth, right? So the flowers that are there in the apex, so mainly elongation, apical growth in this way. Then you have gibberellins that are there, which helps with stem elongation, and it breaks seed dormancy, right? Which means that it helps in germination. You have cytokinins, which helps in growth by cell division. Cell elongation is again elongation of the cell. Cell division is increase in number. And we see that it also helps with chlorophyll synthesis. Then you have ethylene, which primarily helps with fruit ripening, right? And of course, abscisic acid, which is considered to be a stress hormone in plants, right? So we see that it mainly is there due to stressful, during stressful situations, which promotes aging, it promotes, dormancy of buds, so on and so forth. So with this, we come to the end of today's class. We have somebody with us who's going to come very soon, right? So Vishnu, could you please call in our very special guest who is there? I'll not call guest, somebody who you've been asking all day. No, I'll go back to the previous slide. Yes. All right, everyone. Don't say biology is boring. I think the last part got boring because it's all plant hormones. You're like, ma'am, I don't want to learn this. Yes. All right. So guys, I know you've missed her a lot and you've been asking about her all day. We have Ankita ma'am who wanted to quickly meet with all of you. Yes, she was missing all of you. Hi everyone. Hi everyone.
Yes, bye everyone. Good evening, so good to see all of you are here. Yes, I took a small break because we have a long way to go ahead, right? Your examination will be starting, and of course we have so much amazing things which are planned for them, right ma'am? So ma'am is tired after continuously talking.
No, I was just sitting there.
I hope. Thank you so much everyone for wishing me Teachers' Day. That's the reason I was like, okay ma'am, please, I want to come in the session for some time, please. So good to see you here, everyone. It's a Teachers' Day and I have to be here. So I don't know. Are you done, right? Like almost done. So yeah, we can wind up the session.
Yes. So I mean, I was just finishing up with plant hormones. There were some students who were asking me for introduction. See, introductory part in Hindi. Ankita ma'am is here.
Introductory part of Reflex Arc.
Yeah.
ये बहुत हिंदी में अगर सुई चुबाएंगे तो बॉडी रिएक्ट करेगी, राइट? इजी वे टू से. Yes, I got it. I know. Awesome, everyone. Yes, we'll meet in 15 minutes. Arre वाह. Very good. नहीं, ऐश्वर्या मैम से सुनना है. Yes, we will be someday. Yes, awesome, everyone. Thank you so much for the love and thank you so much for the support that you give us. You give to each one of us. You will get the PDF if you will download the Telegram, right? There's a Telegram group of ours. If you download the Telegram group and if you join the group, you will be able to get all the PDFs. I can understand, yes. Same here. Awesome. So yes, I would, right ma'am, we can end the session. Yes, everything is fine now. What do you think, ma'am? So with this, everyone, we are done. You know that BYJU'S have got you covered. And don't forget to hit the like button for this video.
Now I feel like he just wants me to talk in Hindi.
हम बात करें थोड़ी सी. बस इतना बोल दो हाँ.
रिसेप्टर्स वो स्ट्रक्चर्स होते हैं जो एक्सटर्नल स्टिमुलाई को परसीव करते हैं.
Very good. Yes, ma'am.
I have to think so much like before every sentence. That's why I say I don't normally talk in Hindi. Yes, I told 2 lines.
Yes.
It's done.
Yes.
And everyone, tomorrow Ankita ma'am is taking a whole chapter mentee quiz. All of you better be there for the class, right? So you can ask some of the other doubts also because there were so many doubts which I also had to miss out.
So many slides here, but ma'am covered up everything.
Yay! Yes, so show us your love, everybody.
Yes, mission successful, yes. Okay, everyone, now I think we have to leave because we have another session at 7. So all of you join the session at 7 p.m., right? We'll be meeting you all with a big surprise. Very big surprise, I would say. So we'll meet, ma'am, right? We'll answer your question. You're Killer Boy. Oh my god, what an interesting name.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Bye everybody.